If you're one of the people who don't think a White House auction is possible, getting into the process of how it happens could cause you to experience discomfort, denial, a wanton belief that I'm exaggerating a threat, mixed feelings, and if you're one of the people in the insider circles or unions, you may hear the voice of your conscience repeat the click snitches get stitches. Since as many whistleblowers know, this rabbit hole doesn't lead to conspiracy theories, but something rather alarming. But let's take a step back and describe what a super PAC is, for people who are for the first time hearing of the so-called super PAC. Super PACs are funded by corporations and labor unions that aim to alter the opinion of voters during the months that election candidates campaign, and it should be alarming to the general public for several reasons. Reason 1 is its influence on politics. The public may be concerned that such financial support can result in undue influence over political decisions, potentially undermining the interests of the general populace in favor of those of the contributing corporations and unions. Reason 2, lack of transparency. The public might find it alarming that the source of funding for super PACs is often not transparent, making it difficult to trace the influence of specific corporations and labor unions on political campaigns. And reason 3 is the inequality and unfair representation. There may be concerns that the influence of wealthy corporations and powerful labor unions through super PACs can lead to a situation where the voices of ordinary citizens are drowned out, leading to unfair political representation. Furthermore, although the topic of campaign finance and super PAC funding is complex, and public opinions on this issue can vary widely, here are some hypothetical situations that super PACs could be responsible for that you could find troubling. How could a millionaire sway the election with a super PAC? It is rumored that millionaires sponsor gay rights activists. With that being said, it's not far-fetched that a millionaire would fund a super PAC in order to put a candidate in office who will fight for gay rights to be enforced by law. And on the subject of gay rights, considering that we know how moving large sums of money around in the political arena could turn the election towards a non-transparent sponsor's favor, a legitimate question that could be asked is, could a super PAC sponsored by a millionaire have been responsible for the Supreme Court transsexual bathroom rights ruling that led to incidents where adult transsexuals chose to use the bathroom while it was occupied by preteens whom were born gender instead of choosing a gender? I don't refer to this topic with the intention to bash gay people. This is only an example based on events that have already transpired. There were indeed transgendered people sharing restrooms with preteens, and I say this with deepest sympathy. Whatever is felt emotionally by the trans populace, I'm sorry your progress is being torn apart. Since your identity could be very well valid, however, your purpose could be just to raise awareness of what the future holds. Consider this. Sometimes getting a home run takes knocking the ball out the park. Same goes for getting a point across, which is gay and trans people could be forever the default, keeping worlds from overpopulating. Take into consideration that all minds do not change at once, and many trans people felt they made the wrong choice later on in life, wishing they had not went through with surgery. But as far as knocking the ball out of the park, consider your mission accomplished. Your gay rights movements did nothing less than get your point across by spreading awareness. God be with you all. Now you might ask, who came up with the idea and who named it a super PAC, and why? Super PACs, or super political action committees, are independent expenditure only committees that can raise and spend unlimited amounts of money on behalf of a candidate, as long as they do not directly coordinate with the candidate or their campaign. Super PACs have been a subject of intense debate due to their impact on the political landscape. And if you could bear with me, as I take the time to play the devil's advocate, I'd like to imagine what the funding of a Super PAC would look like. In a perfect world, and I were a judge who saw the importance of Super PACs to the national community, since it costs up $2 million to publicize and broadcast information on the credential of candidates across the United States. I might think of the amount of tax dollars are saved by letting labor unions foot the bill to sway the voter opinion, so that a candidate could be elected that fought for appropriate labor conditions and job security. And I may even hope that a committee was formed that sought crowdfunding in order to fund a Super PAC, in order to place in office the best candidates who could rally other constituents together to pass bills that made it mandatory to keep inherited building from dilapidating and old city and rural area pipelines from corroding and busting, allowing the asbestos pipe insulation and other sorts of debris to get into the pipes and hot water heaters. Unfortunately, this world is far from perfect, with no committee to my knowledge accepting crowdfunding in order to publicize all relevant information on every suitable candidate. For infrastructure reform in areas other than ones that have been deemed historic landmarks. However, as a judge, I'd like to think I would express that teams of financially secure people should not be allowed to deviously manipulate the opinions of voters for their own agendas, but in all honesty, a lot of the voters I've had conversations with rely on a few people in the community to get the details of the candidates, to tell them who to vote for, since a lot of people can't find the time to research all the candidates themselves. Or they are unconcerned about politics in general and are just voting cause of being herded into the polls by someone enthusiastically passing out flyers. It's my wish that if Super PACs remain fundable, they fall under strenuous observation and that transparency of who and what unions are responsible for the agenda the funding is for. Also, at the risk of being naive, I used to think that the people selected to place their electoral votes were in place to prevent rich or poor people from negligible campaign and voting practices, but if the mission of the funded Super PAC is a success, that pretty much undercuts the electoral vote, since the purpose of Super PACs have been to run smear campaigns in order to cancel the other opponents with extreme prejudice. And so then, what is to be done by the electoral vote then as far as choosing the sensible candidates who may have been best suited for handling the priorities that the previous candidate couldn't get to before their term in office came to an end? Maybe it's time to have a discussion so that large corporations don't keep politicians in office that fight for billion-dollar revenue corporations to expand and take over every business sector in sight, chopping workforces to substitute people with self-checkout and roboticizing warehouses to replace people with artificial intelligence. Tell your family and friends about these key positive and negative attributes of Super PACs. Super PACs operate independently of candidates' campaigns, allowing them to advocate for specific issues or candidates without direct coordination with the candidates themselves. Super PACs can give a voice to individuals, corporations, or interest groups who want to influence the political process by enabling them to contribute significant funds to support candidates or causes. Proponents argue that SUPERPACs are protected by the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of speech, and that restrictions on their activities would infringe on this right. Cons of Super PACs. Critics argue that Super PACs give wealthy individuals and corporations disproportionate influence over the political process, potentially allowing them to shape policies and outcomes to their benefit. Super PACs are not required to disclose their donors publicly, leading to concerns about dark money and the potential for anonymous, untraceable funds to influence elections. Corrupting influence. Some critics argue that the influx of money from super PACs can create a perception of corruption and erode public trust in the political system, as it may seem that candidates are being unduly influenced by the interests of wealthy donors. These are some of the key points from both perspectives. The role and impact of super PACs continue to be a topic of debate and scrutiny in the realm of campaign finance and political influence. If you'd be so kind to hit the subscribe button, it would be so appreciated. Thanks for watching and take care.